What's up, everybody? It's Troy Cartwright. Welcome back to another episode of 10-Year Town. Today, I want to talk to you about creativity, the power of being present, and the lessons I've learned from one of my favorite books I've read this year. It's a book by Pulitzer Prize-winning author Annie Dillard, also known from books like Pilgrim at Tinker Creek and An American Childhood. And in The Writing Life, she talks about the creative process and all the magic within it. I love this book, and I think y'all are going to enjoy this episode. Stay tuned. There's a plane flying right over my house. To find a honey tree, first, catch a bee. Catch a bee when its legs are heavy with pollen. Then, it is ready for home. It is simple enough to catch a bee on a flower, hold a cup or a glass above the bee, and when it flies up, cap the cup with a piece of cardboard. Carry the bee to a nearby open spot, best an elevated one. Release it and watch where it goes. Keep your eyes on it as long as you can, and hie you to that last known place. Wait there until you see another bee. Catch it, release it, and watch. Bee after bee will lead you toward the honey tree until you see the final bee enter the tree. Thoreau describes this process in his journals, so a book leads its writer. And so too can a song lead its songwriter. This book, The Writing Life, is maybe the best book I've ever read on the writing process. It felt similar to listening to a great song in the way that a great song articulates an emotion that you never could quite place. It was as if Annie Dillard put a name to something I've been chasing my whole life. And that thing is something that I think the American essayist and critic Logan Pearsall Smith said best: the indefatigable pursuit of an unattainable perfection, even though it consists of nothing more than the pounding of an old piano, is what alone gives a meaning to our life on this unavailing star. Talking about songwriting, talking about being creative, often feels like having your head inside of a cloud. It quickly becomes disorienting, and I think that is why so much of the discussion around music devolves into some kind of easily understandable metric like albums sold, monthly listeners, or some arbitrary rating a critic gave it. But all of those things are very far away from the thing that we're talking about today. And what we're talking about today is that compulsion, the chasing of that unattainable perfection, and The Writing Life captures that feeling better than any book I've ever read on the subject. It's a bunch of little vignettes about what it takes to be great, and it sort of dips a few times into a sort of mystical element. But I think there's so much value here, and anybody that is interested in songwriting or any kind of creative pursuit would get so much out of reading this book. It really drove home for me a lot of things that I've been focusing on lately, namely trying to be more present. And by virtue of doing that, I am staying more inspired, and that state of being inspired is leading me to better results. In the last year or so, I've encountered a lot of things that have changed me. There was this interview that we did here on this podcast with Stephen Wilson Jr. I believe it was last summer or fall, and I asked him what his best advice was, and he said, slow down. He said, literally, I think the key to music is slowing everything down, because you can always speed it up. From playing a scale to thinking about what you want to say and how you want to say it, there's no race to the finish line. There's no race to write a song. Slow down and figure out what you want to say. Slow down and listen. And I think he's right. Slowing down is one of the keys to finding the thread of the thing that will pull you forward to where you really want to be. And slowing down and being more deliberate has not only changed my career, but it has also changed how I see the world itself. And being present in that openness is crucial for tapping into inspiration. And in this book, Annie talks about being lost and how that is actually part of the writing process. She says, "Who will teach me to write?" a reader wanted to know. The page, that eternal blankness, the blankness of eternity which you cover slowly, affirming time's scrawl as a right and your daring as necessity, the page, which you cover woodenly, ruining it, but asserting your freedom and power to act, acknowledging that you ruin everything you touch, but touching it nevertheless, because acting is better than being here in mere opacity. The page, which you cover slowly with the crabbed thread of your gut. The page in the purity of its possibilities, the page of your death, against which you pit such flawed excellences as you can muster with all your life strength. That page will teach you to write. There is another way of saying this. Aim for the chopping block. If you aim for the wood, you will have nothing. Aim past the wood. Aim through the wood. Aim for the chopping block. And that is good stuff. It is a beautiful way of saying, focus on your process. The answer is always found in doing the work, in continuing to write, in continuing to show up. If you invest and trust in your process, the results will take care of themselves. That is what aiming for the chopping block is all about. When I am making records or navigating my career, I am often asking myself, what am I going to do now? How will I find a way? It is easy for me to make excuses. I do it all the time. I think, why don't I have this team member? Why don't I have this show or this song on the chart? Blah, blah, blah. All of these things that get me down. I am only human after all. But the answer for me has always been in the next song. Like we talked about earlier, I try my best each day to catch a bee and then see where it takes me. A professional songwriter might write 100 or 200 songs a year, and most of them will never see the light of day. That used to really discourage me. I mean, it's hard to imagine a job where you would do something hundreds of times, and like maybe one of those times it would actually matter. But I find that when I am aiming for a result, I'm actually missing the whole point. But when I focus on my process, the process of writing the song and making it great for the sake of itself, it all seems to come very naturally. There's another quote in this book about the process I'm describing, and it says, like a joyful painter I knew, I asked him how he had come to be a painter, and he said, I liked the smell of the paint. What do you love about the process of what you're doing? For me, there are so many things that stick out. I love the way that a venue smells when you're loading out, like the smell of stale beer and warm audio equipment, that kind of dopamine high you get from a perfectly packed trailer. I love the feeling in the writer room when a song starts to unpack itself and when I feel like we've cracked it open and now we're just filling in the blanks. Those are the parts of the process that I love, but that's different for everyone. And it's good to reflect and pay close attention to those things. Those things that you love are where you should be spending all the time that you can. Go where the excitement is and listen to what it tells you. After being in town for the last 8 years and countless co-writes, I realized that I'd only written about 15 songs by myself since I moved here. Before I moved here, I only wrote by myself. I wrote hundreds of songs by myself, but when I started co-writing, it just kind of flittered away. And that change for me was really sort of a coincidental thing, but I think that the universe has a way of making coincidences happen. And it was back when we had Tom Douglas on the podcast, and he talked about rediscovering the joy of writing alone. And as of late, I've been writing a lot more by myself, and it's been a very profound experience. I think writing solo yields something so personal that there's really no collaborative session that can replicate it. And the individuality of the song excites me and it pushes me to be better. Like I said earlier, following that excitement is unlocking better work for me. I find that even if the songs I write by myself might be a little too left of center to ever be commercially viable, whatever that means, it helps me because when I show up to co-writes, I'm way more excited to be there. I am exuding a certain energy because I'm excited about the work that I'm doing, and it's making me a better writer. And just trying to carve your own path and seeing how that manifests itself has been one of the most important things that I've been doing and that has been working for me. One of the other things that I've been focusing on, and this book helped me realize that, is I needed to step out of the machine for a little bit. After I put out my last record in August, I decided to purposefully remove myself from the relentless cycle of social media. I was making and posting content every day. I've been putting out a song every 4 to 6 weeks, and I've been doing that for over 2.5 years. And after a while, I realized I was just kind of flapping my arms around and not headed in any one particular direction. And yes, I was getting streams and I was making some money, but I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel like I was headed in the direction that I ultimately wanted to go. And that really started to grate against me. And it was at this Rothko exhibit in Paris that I went to that kind of helped me illustrate what that feeling was. This exhibit that I saw was a retrospective on Rothko's career. And if you're not familiar with Rothko's paintings, they're these sort of bigger than human-sized canvases. There are these large color fields with rectangular blocks, and it's sort of the quintessential modern art where a lot of people would say, this isn't art. Anybody could do this. And that just kind of reminds me of what a lot of people say about contemporary pop and country music. But anyway, I digress. The first Rothko I saw in person was about a year before I went to this exhibit. I was at the Met in New York, and to be honest, I didn't really want to be there. I'm not someone that's a great connoisseur of that particular art form, but I was just wandering around, and I stumbled across this painting there, and it stopped me in my tracks. For me, it was the equivalent of getting into your driveway and not wanting to turn the car off and head inside because the song that you're listening to is just so moving, you don't want the moment to end. And that Rothko painting sent me down a rabbit hole, which eventually led me to this retrospective of his career in Paris. This exhibit was 4 levels in this museum, and you start at the basement level. You start with his early paintings, and they're good paintings, but they're not Rothko paintings. They're not signature Rothko paintings. There are pictures of people on a subway. I think there was like a self-portrait that he had made. Like I said, they were good, but they weren't all that interesting. But if you follow the trajectory of his life through this exhibit, you move into the next room, and there's basically like a placard on the wall about how he actually quit painting for a while. He became disillusioned with it, and he started writing a book called The Artist's Reality, which is like a philosophy of art. And he never even put it out. But after some time away, he came back to painting. And you go into the next room and you start to see the beginning of that signature Rothko style, but it's not quite there yet. But there are little glimpses of it. He's on the path and he's following the trail. And you move out of that room, you go up an escalator into the next room, and it is awe-inspiring. You see some of his most famous paintings. But to me, those paintings were made so much more impressive because I was able to view the journey of all that it took for him to get there, to make his greatest works. And I think it's the pursuit itself that gives my life meaning. Seeking that perfect song, that perfect sound, and in order to do that, I know I just have to slow down. And it's a lesson that I'm always learning, but that's the journey that I've been on, and it has left me feeling very fulfilled. And by the way, I just wanted to say how grateful I am to everyone who spends time with this podcast and spends time listening to my music. It's really only because of your support of all those things that I do that I have the time and space I need to chase my greatest work yet. And I don't ever take it for granted, and I appreciate you guys. If you're not sure where you're going, I'd like to offer you some encouragement that it is okay to be lost. I know there are a lot of people that listen to this podcast that maybe feel like they're on the outside looking in. Maybe they want to be in Nashville, or they have obligations that prevent them from writing as much as they want to. And all of those things are valid. I've been there myself, and a lot of times I still feel that way. But I just want to encourage you to keep going and to keep seeking out those thin places where the magic is. You don't need anyone's permission to go there. You just have to sit down and chase the song. You never know what success is going to look like. You never know when inspiration is going to strike. And I would encourage you to seek that inspiration maybe outside of your usual spaces. Maybe go to an art exhibit, or play a video game, or read a book, or have a conversation with somebody that's different than you might normally have. And hopefully that will spark something new for you. The Writing Life by Annie Dillard sparked a lot of things for me, and even a small spark can lead you down a long, exciting path that you never expected. I will leave you with this one last quote from The Writing Life. It references a note that Michelangelo wrote to his apprentice that was found after his death. It said this: "Draw, Antonio. Draw. Draw and do not waste time." Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. It was a little bit different from our normal ones, so if you made it this far, I hope you found some value in it. If there's something else you want me to cover in an episode like this, send me an email, troy@tenyeartown.com. Let me know what you thought about this one. And that's it. That's the pod. See you later.